Are liberal comedians starting to get woke to leftist lunacy, or are they beginning to have an awakening?
White liberals have to start listening to me when I tell them you can't be more offended than the victim. It happened again last week when presidential contender Andrew Yang faced criticism because he said that SNL should not have fired comedian Shane Gillis over racist comments Gillis made about Asians. That's when the internet did what it does best and deemed Yang a racist for not being offended.
I have to confess, I love stand-up comedy. In fact, I can remember as a kid, one of the very first albums I bought was a Steve Martin comedy album. Now, Steve was different than so many comedians of that era because Steve didn't do just one-liner type jokes. His was kind of situational comedy, abstract comedy, but it was different. And I remember the first time I heard Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy and was like, wow! It was absolutely incredible. And then, of course, there was George Carlin. Could George Carlin, an atheist, a liberal by all practical definition, would he find a home among his own if he were alive today? Considering things he had to say on subjects like climate change and environmentalism and what he felt was bourgeois liberals in general. Well, today you have comedians like Jimmy Dore who do political commentary. You have comedians like Bill Maher who do political commentary. And I know a lot of people on the right get absolutely incensed by people like Bill Maher and Jimmy Dore. I actually watch Jimmy Dore's YouTube channel, and a lot of it I like, and there's a lot of it that I disagree with. But I don't think, by any stretch of the imagination, that Jimmy Dore is stupid. There are certain things I think he comes to the wrong conclusion on, but I appreciate somebody who thinks. And there are certain things that Jimmy Dore says that, though I disagree with, I respect the fact that he's at least begun the process of thinking it through. Same is true with Bill Maher. There's a lot about Bill Maher and his conclusions that I absolutely don't like. Obviously, the fact that he is a pretty much outspoken atheist and he blames so much of the world's ills on religion and orthodoxy, and yet at the same time, I also acknowledge that some of what he has to say is true, in particular when it comes to radical Islamic extreme Muslims and their ideology, which is hell-bent on basically eradicating anyone or anything that doesn't agree with them. And I've even heard Bill Maher say, as much as he disagrees with the concept of, quote, Christianity, he does understand that most Christians do not believe in executing people who disagree with them. They agree to disagree. And he says, you cannot say the same thing for Islam. That got him in a whole lot of trouble, even with his base and his support. Bill Maher, as you know, hosts Real Time on HBO. And this past Friday night, he was, on the one hand, a little bit ecstatic, euphoric, salivating a little bit. The fact that, well, maybe we have Trump this time. I don't know. I've been here before. I've been let down before. But it does seem that we finally got him on the impeachment inquiry. Really? Because Governor Cuomo over the weekend basically said, thank you, Nancy Botox Pelosi, for leading us on the impeachment road to nowhere. And he let her have it. He basically said, you've allowed the extreme left of the party to drag us into a direction that is a no-win situation for us. Boom. And there it is. Now, you have Bill Maher and some of his panelists Friday night. They were, you know, as I read this, this is not good for the president. And I know that some of his staff, they're very nervous. And, you know, even Senator Flake said that if they could do a private vote, that 30 to 35 Republicans would vote for impeachment. First of all, that's a bunch of hogwash, and Bill, shame on you. Senator Flake is just that, a flake. And if he really thought that, he doesn't really believe that that can be executed. Flake is so irrelevant now that he says things that immediately gravitate the attention of the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream propaganda media that they give him a headline. There are not 30 to 35 Republicans in that Senate who would vote privately to impeach Donald Trump. There would be some, I would say maybe 15, probably that same group that voted to defund the border wall, that same group of hardcore, hardline never-Trumpers. And I know the Democrats started to have yet another orgasm this week when a Republican governor has come out against Trump. Yeah, the governor of Vermont, that doesn't really qualify him as a Republican. He's a Republican dressed in Democrat drag because that's what he has to do to get elected in that state. So, yeah, that's not a big deal. But then there are times that I listen to Bill Maher and I think he's starting to get it, but he doesn't fully get it. For example, even Bill Maher had to acknowledge to his own panel Friday night, look, if this was Donald Trump Jr. having done what Hunter Biden did, Rachel Maddow would talk about this 24/7. And he's absolutely right. The fact that all Democrats are dismissing what Biden and his son did is, oh, this is a nothing, there's no evidence, he's been exonerated from this. This is tantamount to Hillary Rodham Clinton always saying, look, this has been looked into, there's nothing there. No, the fact that she looked into it, the fact that Comey, in doing her bidding, gave her a pass doesn't mean there isn't anything there. The fact that certain powers within the deep state gave her a pass doesn't mean there's nothing there. And so the fact that Biden hasn't been held accountable yet doesn't mean there isn't anything there. And that doesn't mean that he's going to necessarily be arrested or brought before any type of real House committee and forced to answer any real questions on his involvement in the Ukraine. But I believe the American people are speaking, which is why he's plummeting in the polls. Also, the polls do indicate that the vast majority of Americans, including Dems, don't believe that Donald Trump should be impeached over this. Well, of course not. And then as the program progressed, Bill Maher actually did a monologue that made me go, what? In his New Rules segment.
There was a study done last year where people were asked to rate their feelings about various races, and white liberals were the only group that has a bias against themselves. They want to hang out only with people who are not them. That's like your mother preferring the neighbor's kids. There is a weird self-loathing going on among white liberals, and it's not helping anyone. Lifting up those whose society has cheated or forsaken, that's liberalism. Hating all things white is just tedious virtue signaling. Haven't black people suffered enough slavery, Jim Crow, and now I got to make some yuppie feel better about himself? As a black friend of mine said, and I quote, I'm doing aight. I don't need your pity. If you really feel this bad about the whole race thing, if being white is really this toxic for society, let's tax it. Let's tax whiteness. A hunky tax. We'll do it like carbon offsets. We'll calculate your exact level of white lameness and then charge you a Caucasian offset fee based on a mean percentage of household income indexed to the net, not gross national product, and averaged with the consumer price index.
Dave Chappelle, who would never be called a Trump supporter, appeared on Saturday Night Live, has had his own TV shows and gigs, and yet he's been lampooned by the left for his latest Netflix special, which personally I thought was funny. Again, I'm watching one at a time. Some of these comedians on the left begin to look around and go, wait a minute, you're attacking free speech. And this attack isn't coming from the right. It isn't the ultra-conservatives trying to silence, trying to mute, trying to do away with liberal comedians, liberal speech. It's other liberals. If you're not liberal enough, we're going to put you in Twitter prison, Facebook jail. And now some liberal comedians are beginning to call this out. And they're suffering blowback and repercussion from it, and they're a little bit taken back by it. As Bill Maher will no doubt hear about it, that he shouldn't have gone after Rachel Maddow. Because after all, Trump is bad, 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 bad. And to say that there's a problem for Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, well, that's you pawn of Trump, which he certainly is not. But he does think. And Jimmy Dore does think. And this is what Jimmy Dore, and this is what Bill Maher and Dave Chappelle and other liberal comedians better figure out real fast. Thinking is an enemy of groupthink, or I should say group control. The most dangerous thing that you can do to an oligarch trying to control the masses by silencing opposition on all the social media platforms and even channels like right here on YouTube, you're thinking. And thinking makes you dangerous. After all, even the Bible says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." Or let me paraphrase that. Let my people think. Well, that's it for this rant. Hey, thanks so much for watching on a Saturday. Really do appreciate it. Give us a thumbs up. Share this to other social media platforms. Make sure you're a subscriber to the channel and smack the bell for my next rant.